What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for the future based off the charts are showing and based off the data is suggesting. I'm also going to break down why Tesla did make a nice move to the upside, what the Fed is doing, and how these things may affect the market for Friday and also for next week. And I'm talking about Friday because tomorrow is Thanksgiving, tomorrow is Thursday, and the stock market is going to be closed in the United States. So before I get started with any of this data and talk about what I expect for Tesla, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is any could be a free Tesla share, a free Apple share, or a mix of all of them. This is a limited time offer, guys. The offer ends in just 6 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So looking at Tesla, this thing was up almost 8% for the day, finally moving how Tesla normally moves, looking pretty good right now. Now, what I mentioned yesterday to everyone was I was looking at many technical indicators and seeing that the FOMC minutes meeting would most likely cause the market to pump. And I mentioned to everyone that Tesla was at a very critical zone, and if we broke out of this resistance level, this thing would likely make an explosive move. And that is almost exactly what ended up happening. So why did I feel this way? I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, but I want to now talk about what that macro analysis is basically showing and how this could actually affect Tesla. What I told everyone yesterday was, all right, so we have this channel Tesla was in from the last like week or so, week and a half. Tesla would just get rejected, basically touch both sides, the top, the bottom, top, bottom, right? Like crazy. Then we finally got a really nice break above this. And I mentioned to everyone, if we broke above this, this thing would fly. And my target on Tesla was 175 to about 180. I thought Tesla could actually go as high as 180. We ended up going to 183. So I was off just by a couple of dollars. But overall, guys, the setup looks nice. As you can see, this looks like a nice inverse head and shoulders like formation. It looks like Tesla's going to start pushing a little bit higher very, very soon. Now, the thing about Friday is going to be a short day for the markets. So I don't expect Tesla to just rally extremely hard. And maybe it proves me wrong. I would love for that to happen. But at the end of the day, guys, I think the week after, next week, is going to be even more interesting. Now, why is the market pumping the way it is? We need to actually go back a couple of steps. This happened because of the FOMC minutes meeting. And what essentially happened was the Fed gave us some news that isn't the best for the markets, but other pieces of news that are better for the markets for the near term. And this really did outperform and kind of outweigh the bad news, right? The good news outweighed the bad news. That's why the market's pumping. The bad news was, if you want to interpret it that way for the stock market, when we interpret it that way, it's because of the fact that the Fed is likely going to be raising the terminal funds rate even higher than they initially expected, which means that we're likely going to get even more rate hikes in the future than they initially thought. That's to really help bring down inflation. And their new terminal funds rate is well above 5%. Before they were talking about like 4.75% at the max. Now it's over 5%, 5.5% or something like that. So that in turn will cause more pain for the markets for the longer term. You have to be prepared for that. It's also going to cause more pain when it comes to earnings for a lot of these companies. The earnings recession is going to come for the longer term. But for the short term, what is good about this is the fact that the Fed announced that they are most likely going to give us smaller rate hikes very, very soon. They seem very fixated on 50 basis points for December. That's awesome for the stock market because we know, and when December comes, the market almost already fully priced in 50 basis points. In fact, I think we already priced it in, and the market's already ready for it. We know what's going to happen. You know, there's more certainty, and many of the Fed officials were extremely fixated, such as like Mester. They were very, very fixated on this analysis, and that's going to be good for the market for the short term. On top of that, for Friday, I'm not seeing anything on the economic calendar that's coming out. I do believe that we're going to have more Fed speakers coming out for next week. We also have not CPI, PCE and then CPI a little bit later, not to mention the Fed meeting in the upcoming weeks. So we have some time for the market to continue to push up just a bit. Now, what else is good about the markets would be November 25th is Friday, and we have a 2.03 put to call ratio. Now, why is this a good thing? It's good because the majority of investors are over leveraged on the put side still. And I was talking about this previously. This means that the market makers are going to likely try to keep the market afloat. They're going to try to help SPY hold these levels, and that in turn can help Tesla. And they're doing this so that they don't have to pay all of these option premiums. They're going to cause pain for the majority of investors who are still holding those puts. So that's going to be good for the markets. We're also seeing a lot of buyers now coming in. We're seeing lots of people selling puts and buying calls like crazy across the markets. People are becoming more excited, a lot more bullish, and that's good for the near term. But we are seeing some puts being bought for the longer term because institutions do anticipate more downside to come later on, especially as we approach like January, maybe after January. So please be ready, guys. The bear market is not entirely over, but until then, right, we still have some more time to continue pushing. On top of that, when it comes to Tesla, I'm liking some things, guys. The volume was there. It finally came 109 million in total. That's very, very good volume. It looks very strong. And I do anticipate the shorts volume percentage to continue coming down. It already started coming down. What this essentially means is the people with long positions, they're gaining the edge over this stock. That's once again another very bullish signal. And then if you look at the price pairs ratio, we finally got something amazing, a bounce, a tiny little bounce right here. You guys can see this. This is a sign that Tesla was outperforming SPY today. Tesla was outperforming the market. Tesla's notorious for having a beta of 2.0 or higher. This means that Tesla typically should be outperforming the market, and we're finally starting to see it act like normal. That's once again another good sign. Compared to the QQQ, it did just as well. Another really nice bounce right here on the price pairs ratio. We're seeing Citigroup turning bullish on Tesla. They went from saying sell Tesla to becoming more neutral. That's a good sign. And also, from a seasonality basis, Tesla's green about 48% of the time on Fridays, but I do anticipate kind of like a sideways slash green day for the market. So I do believe that Friday should be pretty decent for Tesla. And also remember, Novembers are actually historically very bullish months for Tesla. They're usually seeing Tesla up about 61% of the time. So Tesla's usually green the large majority of the time in November, and this tends to be a good month. So hopefully this trend continues. And the short interest, in my opinion, is going to start trending down a bit as Tesla does start to perform well. So I'm going to be watching for this just to be very safe because many shorts may start to cover now that Tesla's starting to push up. Does this mean it's going to just squeeze like extremely high overnight? Not necessarily, but some shorts will likely start covering at a faster rate, leading to the share price coming up. I want to note something else though that's very important. So on the SPY, from a more macro perspective, look at this. This thing has been respecting this trend. I apologize about all of these like support levels. I usually just keep them up there. But anyways, look at this trend on SPY. This is all you need to see. Just look at the top. You'll notice that the upper trend line, we touch the top, we come down, we touch the top, we come down, and we are getting closer to touching the top around that 408 or so level, maybe 407 to 408. That also happens to be where this gap is. I was talking about this previously, this gap around 407, almost very close to 407. That's a good sign for SPY to continue pushing. It looks pretty bullish for the near term. Now, I don't know too much about Friday. It's a little bit tricky to predict Friday because it's a very short day. We may see a sell-off at the end of the day because lots of profit takers will be there. But for the week after, I anticipate some pretty nice price action. I believe that SPY is going to break a resistance at 403, and this thing's going to start pumping to like 404, 405, and maybe hit 407 pretty quickly. That's going to be bullish. However, once we hit 407, I expect SPY to maybe hang out up here for another week or two before this thing does end up coming down again. And it may end up coming down because of the Fed, Jerome Powell announcing something or something else like that. Now, is it also possible for us to break above this trend line? That's also very possible, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it or even like become way too bullish after that. I'd be very cautious during that time. Now, if that's the case, you also have to note the fact that Apple's looking pretty good too. This could help push the QQQ and SPY. And this thing is likely, in my opinion, going to be retesting that 152 to 153 zone. I do believe Apple could do that. And the overall setup is resembling the QQQ with another inverse head and shoulders like formation right over here. Once again, looking pretty nice overall. On the QQQ, this is looking good too. If you look at the overall trend, I think I saw another head and shoulders forming, an inverse head and shoulders on the 5 minute. Yeah, I did see it, or something very similar to it, somewhere here. But anyways, guys, it looked pretty good. I think right here you guys could see it doesn't look like too perfect, but you guys could see right here it came up, down. We formed the other shoulder right here, and then we pushed up. So there it is. And this thing did start to push up a little bit more. It does seem like it's going to retest 290 very soon, which is going to help the tech sector. Now, what else is interesting is the dollar index. This thing is continuing to come down. I mentioned this in my previous video where my zone is for this. Right here, the highlighted areas where this thing has seen very, very key support, as previous resistance was around there too. That's around that 105 to 104.6 zone. We could see the dollar index come down a little bit more, which is bullish for the markets. On the VIX, though, there is one thing that is, in my opinion, a sign that the market's not going to be extremely bullish. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, we may push up, but we're not going to push up extremely hard. SPY could hit maybe like 407, 408, but I don't think SPY is going to hit like 420, 430, 440, those super high levels. That's because of how low the VIX already is. This thing has been dropping like crazy. And notice how when we hit this like $19 to $20 zone, we have a tendency of kind of hanging out here for a week or two before we see another big continuation to the upside, and that could end up affecting the markets, right? But until then, it looks like we did end up breaking below support. We broke this zone right here, like I mentioned. We filled the gap like I predicted. My prediction was about 20.5 on the VIX. We got 20.35. Once again, another bullish signal. If this thing continues to come down, watch 19. Around this 19 level, I do believe some of the buyers will step in. Some of the bears will start defending their positions. And we could see the market start to chop a little bit later. But we do have some more room for upside in the overall stock market first before we see some chop, which is why I want to make that very clear. So, what this all means for Tesla, let's switch on to Tesla. I think that for Friday, if you are watching Tesla, this thing's going to get another push and it's going to retest this 186 level. And I think we have seen a lot of chop up here. So I think Tesla's going to chop around here for a bit. And as long as we hold like 180 or so, even if we hold like 175, that's going to be completely fine. But I'm not saying we have to go that low. But I'm saying that around 180, as long as we hold that level, at least for the most part, we're going to be completely fine. I don't expect this thing to just launch to the moon overnight. And I do believe it is going to make a more explosive move later. But as long as we hold these levels, this thing has the potential to start pushing up more going into the week after. So for next week. However, for Friday, it is still very possible for this thing to make a very big move. I mean, if we break 186, we have strong resistance here. If we break it, I mean, this thing could just come flying all the way up to 190 pretty fast. But first, we have to break 186, which is very possible. Now, if Tesla does keep pumping, all right, we have a nice gap all the way up here. This is around 193. I could see Tesla filling that gap sometime next week. So I do believe that what I expect for Friday is a nice pump into open, Tesla hitting like 186, maybe 190. It's a little bit hard to tell. Then maybe a bit of a sell off as the day goes on because some people may start selling their shares. They may start taking profits for the weekend. However, I don't think it's going to be extreme because of the options chain. Like I mentioned, SPY is not going to be crashing down very hard, most likely. We're most likely going to hold these levels, in my opinion. And if that's the case, for the next week, we're going to be in a very good position to continue pushing. So that's essentially what I see for Tesla and the overall market. So, anyways, guys, we're looking more bullish than bearish. If Tesla does come down, watch this 181.46 level. Then we could also watch this level right here around this 177 to 180 zone, but I'm not necessarily counting on it coming down that hard. If it does, completely fine and nothing to worry about. As long as it holds these levels, it's going to be fine. Then we have some support at like 175, followed by this gap area around this 170. Like I said before, I don't see Tesla coming all the way back down there. I really don't expect it, but I'm just noting these support zones just in case you guys are prepared. And I do anticipate another push into open, maybe a bit of a sell off as the day goes on Friday, as profit takers will come. However, I do anticipate a big bullish continuation for the week after. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tesla in the 190s by next week. That's what I have for this one. Hopefully that wasn't too complicated. Have a great weekend, guys. I'm going to give you guys another Thanksgiving message for tomorrow. And remember, the market's closed tomorrow, which is why I'm talking about Friday. Thank you all for listening. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon because the long-term future is still incredibly bright, and peace out.